Hello. Welcome to episode 9 of the End of the Beginning podcast. In this episode, we chat about the freedom of saying, I don't know, the indefinite nature of enlightenment, and ask the question, what is mind? We discuss seeing yourself in others, and how do you integrate your spiritual perspectives into parenting. We hope you enjoy what you hear, and if you'd like to submit any questions for upcoming episodes, please contact us at theendofthebeginningpodcast@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Instagram. Thanks for listening. Yeah, for me, I feel like it's tied into that freedom that is available when you say, I don't know. Like I remember, I think it was even this morning on the ride into school, I was dropping my daughter off and she asked me a question. I was like, I have no idea. But there's this thing inside me that used to want to have all the answers, that used to want to know everything that was possible to know. And I think it's important to have a voracious mind and be curious and all that stuff. But there's an ease for me, speaking for me, there's an ease in, and I've said it before, but in that I have 7 pieces of a 1 billion-piece puzzle, and I'm not supposed to know the entire puzzle, what the entire puzzle looks like. Like, for me, there's an ease, there's a relaxation, my mind has been up until that point of realizing that, has been trying to make sense out of everything.
Yeah.
And that's exhausting.
It is. And probably quite survival orientated.
Totally.
And survival of what? Like if I could know everything about the world or about nature, then I can counter or coexist with or resist and overcome mortal risks.
Yeah.
Things trying to get me.
Definitely that. I remember a long time ago, you and I talking about this, because I would talk to you about politics and I would talk about like world events and things, and you were a little more withdrawn from that stuff.
Or a lot.
Yeah. And I remember the justification I had at the time was because I wanted to be able to navigate things for my family and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that feels familiar, a memory, yeah.
But in truth, it probably was what you're saying. Like there's that whole thing of like the bastards are out to get you and don't let them get you. And
yeah,
I think it's for me, it's definitely linked into that distrust of authority. And so if I have more information than them, or I know what they're doing, them, whatever that means. But the relaxation is the kind of shortcut. the relaxation shortcut. Yeah. It's definitely, it's like that's the hack for it, is like relaxing and trusting that things are happening the way they should.
And why is that?
There's a sweet spot. There's definitely a sweet spot because apathy can leak in.
You still advocate for awareness.
And for what you feel
things.
For what you feel is right and what you feel is justified. I was talking to a friend who I hadn't seen in a long time, and she had a very strong opinion about the Israel-Palestine war, and it felt like the air kind of got really electric for a second. It was like this is a very like kind of trigger moment, and it was fascinating because for me, my perspective is that war is abhorrent. And the whole thing really, regardless of who's responsible and who's doing what to who, can we all agree that all of it is pretty awful, that war itself is such a destructive and negative force.
Aberrance is suggestive that it really has no place, that it never should happen. It's egregious by its nature, or it's just it should be the last resort.
I mean, even last resort, like I know that if you zoom far enough back, that nothing matters. It doesn't. But to balance that human aspect, I would prefer that humanity had a way, or maybe that's what we're doing, maybe we're finding a way to not have war and aggression be the solution, the final solution when we can't sort things out. It's kind of the backstop is to just destroy stuff. And I know like there is that kind of destruction, renewal. But for me, like suffering, it'd be quite, again, we've spoken about this before too, but you know, the kind of, maybe the lessening or not the removal of, because suffering creates, you know, great growth and understanding and those mechanisms. Maybe I feel like I'm tying myself in a knot right here.
It might be indicative of the very matter, that it is solutionless. The collision or the inherent disharmony, and my human being says war is utterly ridiculous, and that there's way too much of me in them and them in me for us to hurt each other and create more mess. And yet there's another part that acknowledges the perfection of the universe as it is, and a desire to take that swirling motion and move it in a more exciting direction, but you can only start from now and here.
Yeah.
So the mess of it all now.
I feel like if I'd been my younger...
How do those two things coexist without tension?
I don't know if they can.
As you like.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean by I think that...
Well, that links back to your...
the inability for a clear answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lostness. But yeah, how do we coexist with... There's this Jack Cornfield talks about...
Jack Cornfield?
Yeah, just yet another spiritual teacher, but of a Buddhist persuasion. Although he had a pretty profound relationship with Nisargadatta Maharaj, is obviously. I think he's Advaitin, but Hindu. He was... Why was I talking about him? Oh, yeah, don't know mind. So there's a Buddhist tradition, probably Zen, and the whole shtick of the place is to go there from an outsider's perspective in a retreat modality, which there would have been people living in and devoting their entire lives to it, is to practice don't know mind. So the addendum of the place is be don't know mind. I don't know. So a question's raised, yeah, but what if I need to do this, then what? And it would be, I don't know. But I have many problems in my life that need address. What can I do about them? I don't know. I want to fix my relationship before divorce ensues. I don't know.
Does that just leave you
myself very much? What do I do about that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Does that just leave you in free fall? It feels like you stay in free fall.
I'd be very fascinated. I'm very fascinated by... Can you be very fascinated?
Yeah.
I think it's an oxymoron. I'm fascinated.
Extremely?
Yeah. Really, really, really fatal. It's like, well, it's either fatal or it's not. Free fall is a metaphor for something. It's the inability to describe how you feel, or sorry, it's an attempt to describe how you feel. How does that feel?
No, I just meant more that you can't connect with anything. You're in free fall. It's like literally jumping out of an aeroplane, and you're like...
I'm familiar with gravity, but what's the human emotion connected to it?
Well, just that you're lost, that you have nothing to hold on to. There's no, there's nothing of substance. There's just you, I guess.
Right. And how does that feel?
A lot. I mean, a lot of things. It feels amazing and
in this context,
euphoric and frightening and
yeah.
Unsure, and like there's many for me.
Yeah. And in that context though, when we say, I'm going to yield my answer finding, I'm going to give away the solver, I'm going to give that away. But then wouldn't I be in free fall? He does a lot of holding. He does a lot of keeping the wolves at bay. If I gave him a time out, if I gave him the long weekend off, I'd be in free fall. That feels like terror to me. Of all the balls I'm juggling, I'm just hanging in. The opposite of flow, the opposite of surrender. So it's just one modality in a million modalities, one invitation among a million invitations. But the primary energy of that invitation is like, could we attempt to regard the universe as inherently safe? Could we attempt to see the chaos, which in its, I think etymologically is a neutral term, chaos, could we attempt to regard it either neutrally or maybe even benevolently? Maybe that doesn't make sense. Could we regard chaos as neutral or potentially even benevolent? And there's a full spectrum of argument. Nihilism would suggest that it's ruthlessly neutral, that it does not give a fuck. It is universing, and that's all. Like a blind, deaf, blunt instrument that just marches on. And there's human experiences that feel like it's like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
What is it all for? What is it all for? Is the backdrop love or not? Or is the backdrop just the universe is just universing?
Yeah, like in my head, it's like, can't it just be for the experience of it?
But then why would the universe want an experience?
Why? It feels like back to that thing of everything that ever was and ever will be being not that. And the actual experience of having the experience is the purpose of it.
Yeah, and what's the value?
But a value is a binary term or dualistic term.
Subjective, you mean?
Well, there's kind of value and not value.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's double-edged, yeah.
Yeah. And rather than, everything can be of value if you choose it to be of value. Even the stuff that you can't see it, you can go, well, I'm sure there's value to it, but I just don't see that value right now.
Maybe grounding it, for me at least, why does the universe go to all the trouble of existing? And you seem to be saying, so it can have experience of itself. That's not enough of an answer for me. It has to be compelled. There has to be joy in it, doesn't there?
Why? Because there's suffering and there's a whole bunch of stuff in there.
We've discussed suffering a lot though, like how clarifying and how expansive it is. And
yeah.
I heard something said by a spiritual teacher this week and got curious about my relationship to it. But to me, the game is rigged. To me, behind the desire for the universe to experience itself is something inherently loving, to have an ever deepening experience, an ever deepening experience of love, which is the same as experience, and it's experiencing its own nature. And the suggestion from the teacher was that that's a conveniently benevolent outlook. It's way, way more neutral. But I find, in my experience, interfacing with, there's somebody I met who was very traditionally and orthodoxly, also not a word, Buddhist in that way. And they regarded everything as neutral, as that things simply are. To me,
it's on the edge of something, isn't it? Can you feel that? Like there's definitely something there's something quite profound in that space that we're walking right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think probably space for me to have a bigger holding around it as well, if I'm really honest. Though it expands my heart to contemplate the universe experiencing itself. I'm present to the experience being revelatory. We are revealing ourselves to ourselves in wonder.
Yeah.
That's not neutral. It might be natural, but it's not neutral.
It might be.
Because it's so invigorating.
Yes, but is it
joyous?
But is it invigorating and joyous because it's your true self and your true form?
Yeah.
Yeah, but so it is neutral because it just is you, and you're actually finding yourself. Like
but
when
that doesn't have, neutral implies there's in a way nothing to find. Like as if you think about a positive or a negative charge, you just find it. But in fact, I don't even know if neutrality exists for but 1/10 of a second anywhere, because things are swinging and oscillating all the time between ooh ah.
What I'm trying to explain, I don't think I have and so maybe I don't understand the concept enough, but it's like that thing of you're choosing not that most of the time. we're being caught up in, I can only speak for myself, so let's just do that. I have been choosing not love, not joy, which is my natural state of who I am. When you find a place of deep meditation, or you sit with God, or whatever these things are, there's enormous amounts of love, I'm told. Perhaps that is actually just the state. It's not actually a positive thing at all. It's just the true state.
Yeah.
And the attraction to that state is because you're finally finding yourself. And you've been choosing not that. You've been feeling shit about yourself. You've been feeling down. You've had whatever the things are.
It makes sense to me. I think you're saying it's the revelation that generates the charge of relativity. So having experienced not that, coming home to it is outrageously beautiful, because all the tension and all the absence of peace I've experienced, coming back to this infinity of well-being that is my nature, is an incredible relief beyond relief.
Maybe there is no neutrality. Maybe there's no such thing. Maybe that gimbal point right in the middle, the fulcrum point right in the middle, maybe it doesn't exist. And to various degrees, however subtle they are, you are either not being yourself or you are being yourself.
To me,
I know this feels so vague and
abstract.
So wishy-washy,
Well,
but it feels quite inside my body. It feels very profound, and it feels like there's some real kind of, I don't know, I'm just saying what I've just said before because I don't have any other language for it. But you're just not being yourself when you're upset.
Yeah, I suggest it's all.
When you're depressed or when you're anxious, all you're being is not being yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then
these are detours from our true nature, and so we experience them as discomfort or some form of self-abandonment or some form of distortion of who we really are. But we've discussed at length, ad nauseum, the beauty of what it is to detour and return. And in fact, why does the universe go to all the trouble of existing? Why does the universe go to all the trouble of existing? To be able to create duality, to detour from self and return to self, and celebrate all the wonder of what you already are. Hence that it's a process of revealing what you already are. And yet, by having discovered more of yourself, more of yourself by expanding the terrain that you are, and living that as now the normalized truth of this is what it is to Paul. I didn't realize it was so big. I had a feeling it was bigger. But now I've normalized that bigness. And I'm inspired to do new stuff. In a very human, functional way. I feel more confident to back myself to step into this bigger arena. If nothing else, that I feel like, worst case, I could always fall back into me.
Well, it gives you permission, doesn't it,
can live.
to be yourself more.
Maybe that's where things get, you can feel it, maybe humanizing these really abstract concepts without losing the thread. It feels a little more grounded in reality. I'm not excited about the neutrality part of it, and yet I can feel some truth in it. I suppose the premise is, if the universe didn't exist, we would be floating around in utter bliss, which feels relatively neutral. Sort of convenient because I can find a way to understand it.
No. I think you're bang on. It's just the bliss and the joy and that ecstatic feeling means nothing because it cannot be compared to none of that. I feel like I'm just saying the same thing over and over and being more and more excited about it though inside my being, because it's gone in a different kind of way. Cool.
Can I ask you what you're experiencing? Excitement. Can you be a little more specific? Is it something in your body?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it feels like that little click moment where you go, I think I understand that concept now in my being, rather than just as a head concept, like a heady kind of intellectualization.
You can feel it alive inside.
Yeah, I can feel it. It's very again, it's an excitation of the cells in my being about the idea that truly understanding the concept that you are happiness and joy, and there's a reason that you are attracted to those states. And sometimes you're not. You know, sometimes for whatever reason we are attracted. I remember being, you know, like attracted to melancholy in my teenage years and grunge music, giving away my age. But there is an exaltation. That's not a word either.
Exaltation.
There's an exaltation about joy and happiness and love as a way of being, and that mustn't. It doesn't have to. But for me, that would indicate that the fact that pulls me towards it must have a purpose. Like that. I'm just trying to explain something I can't explain.
Yeah, you're describing resonance. My true nature calls me home to it.
Yeah. It doesn't, because when I say it must have a purpose, no, it mustn't. Like, it doesn't have to have a purpose. Like, that doesn't make sense. And that's not actually what I'm trying to say. But I'm saying, like, the very fact that I am being pulled towards it is an indicator, perhaps, that is my true self, and that there is something like, because we just take it for granted. That's what I call happy. That's what I call joy. That's what I call, we've named it something and intellectualized the idea. But when you are feeling it in your body and it's actually part of who you are, what does that mean? That means more than I'm happy. You know, it means connection. It means, I mean, you could just live in that space forever. You could just be in that space. And then maybe that becomes meaningless. And then you oscillate back to not that, to give it purpose. Not sure. I feel, again, I've tied myself in a knot, but I'm trying to understand something that I'm trying to communicate something that I don't understand fully.
Yeah.
I think.
So this is, to me, what's happening here, as best as I can hold it, understand it, experience it, is the difference between, you can't know God, but you can be God. We can't describe it with language. You can paint a picture of God, and it might be the most beautiful experience of your human life, but you will not capture God. But it's still worth doing. And so right now, trying to find the language is a beautiful exercise. Maybe there's degrees of frustration in it. A sense of duty to capture it for the audience if we're going to bother. Let's give it a go.
It feels frivolous, you know, like...
Wow, isn't that interesting? But you can't describe God, but you can be God. So the very thing you're trying to capture is a feeling state inside of you right now. And it's catalyzed, it would seem, it's catalyzed by a certain flavor of dialogue that's deeply resonant with self. And all the cells of your body are lighting up and going, that's the thing. You go, well, what is that? How do I define that? How do I prove it? How do I package that so I could communicate it to others and maybe have it validated or whatever, which is not a deliberate pursuit, but some natural momentum forms around that. How do I know I'm not crazy? And the proof is in the quality of the feeling. Coming back to something you said, how much can I grow? How much love can I suck into my being and emanate out of me? Which is to say, how much love can I be? How much of myself can I bear? And notice that love and self are interchangeable.
I think too, there's an excitement in me because it's, however small it is, there's an understanding of why I'm attracted to joy and why I'm attracted to, and I've never had that answer before.
Okay. Something quite specific. Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, like, why are we attracted to happiness? Why are we attracted to... But then again, you know, like the, you know, devil's advocate is like, well, some people aren't. Some people think happiness is...
Well, you weren't. You were drawn to melancholy.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful arc in that. There must be. So, I mean, maybe it's a convenience in me, but that there's nothing out of place in the universe. And that as we nuance and complexify, ourselves and our lives become wonderful and disastrous within the same calendar year or something like that. It's like, I've got to also create, if I'm going to be really truthful and honor my human heart in this spiritual journey, because I'm inferring that there's a spiritual part and a human part, really stay closely interfaced with that, then I've got to allow space for how much part of me hates this, for how much part of me does not want to let go of that old part because I care so much. Something like, how do you unfold this wonderful spiritual experience of humaning and allow your human heart to care deeply? Because if it's just this wonderful ride and you just keep welcoming in experiences, part of the experience is caring a lot. And the first place we find that is in caring about other people and caring about things and caring about self, caring about fairness and justice. And that's why it's always an interesting paradigm of, a fascinating threshold around wanting to get off of something, wanting to move back into a flow versus wanting to honor the part that really cares. Something I've played with in recent years, not new to our conversations or the podcast, is when we get really expanded, it's joyous and beautiful. And limitation dissolving. You become unlimitedness itself. And I suspect that it gets hard to really care about much from that space. Like a bit like being on the heroin to end all heroines or something. We get so high. It's so beautiful. It's really hard to take any problems seriously. We're so expanded. This is why remaining relatable with as much expansion as you can hold is an amazing game to play. Because if you just disappear into your godhood and everything's love, someone goes, I broke my foot. It's like, how wonderful. So many things, so many beautiful things will come from this. And you can't be with the person. Not feel their feeling, not dip to the lows of it, but really see them in their broken bone, or whatever. And so the humanness is where we really get to care. I care so much. So this big, big, bright heart that can somehow be fully online and really care about your own human journey. Really care. So to me, it's the great authenticator. It can be inauthentic. It's the corollary. Expansion in isolation becomes inauthentic. It's fascinating. And then coming back into this feels really real and alive. This is why I love the model of ascension and descension, moving into expansion and then coming back into deep, deep feeling. It's the nature of this plane. And so I'm going to work with this plane in a way, almost becoming it. It is about duality. And so I am about duality while I'm here. And in some ways, across the spectrum of spiritual offerings, there seems to be some confusion about this, where 95% of the conversation becomes about the ascended bit, about the expansive bit.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and not always waffly. Some people who are really holding it and they're embodying what they can hold. And you look and you go, wow, that's a really expanded view of how wonderful things are. Maybe I'm not as expanded as them and I can't hold it. Or maybe there's a new way emerging. I don't know. But I know what's worked for me and what hasn't. And what works beautifully for me is welcoming in all my parts. The parts that feel small, the parts that do not know, the parts that don't know the answer. And the proof of the efficacy and continued advocacy for that practice is in how beautiful it feels for those parts to be seen and welcomed in. It feels amazing. It feels like my very best. Coming back to what you were saying, which feels like coming home to myself. Why is happiness attractive? That's a beautifully fierce way to be authentic with something that's a given It's just, it's a cultural given, you could say. But to go,
It
what,
is,
what
hey.
the fuck is happiness?
Why is everyone
people?
trying to be happy?
What are we even talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
You know, there's many pulling aparts of that. Well, happiness is rather superficial compared to deep peace. That's a Tolle directive, which is probably borrowed from something more traditional, not to rag on Tolle, but because it's a beautiful, it's just so human.
Yeah.
To
It's very
differentiate,
isn't it?
fundamental,
Yeah,
that's the right
yeah.
word, yeah. To pull these apart. And you can also have joy. There's incredible joy in peace. To be able to walk around, having experienced turbulence in our lives, to be in a different chapter where you can walk around and experience peace where there was once tension. Eventually it might be boring. It's like, yeah, I'm done here. I used to get social anxiety in big event places, or being around that work colleague used to drive me crazy, and now it doesn't. Oh man, that contrast to go, I used to be crippled by anxiety around this person, or anger or fear, or something brighter, like you might have been in love with them or something, and it was you were overwhelmed with something. And then to be in a different phase where that part of yourself has been loved and welcomed in and transmuted, not because you were rushing it along to feel better, but really, really met in every square inch of it. And now you can sit there and go, wow, I can coexist with this beautifully. That's peace. I grew, and now I'm not I feel like I used to be a little pebble, and now I'm a mountain. Sometimes I can feel that big, that contrasting. And that's more than nice, that's a beautiful experience of self. I revealed to myself I was a lot bigger than I thought. But because I forgot, there's incredible joy in remembering. And because of that incredible joy, I want to experience some more stuff. And I feel inspired about experiencing that on a human plane. I want to experience it in form. I want to experience it in human relationship. So often, both the positive and the negative experiences we sit with, like I remember talking to someone, if you can really coexist with something in your inner world and transmute it, like if there's a lot of anxiety or some trauma to process, or just a thing that in your field that is ready and ripe to bubble up and be met. What tends to happen is, if we have the spaciousness in us to do that and welcome it in as one of our lost children or a lover that we've been craving to re-engage with, and we meet it in full transmutation in all its rawness and intimacy, then typically that's more than enough. It's a complete process when it's met in a deep feeling way. But if we can't feel it because we're too distracted or too overwhelmed, but it's going to push its way through anyway, it's going to take physical form. And this is 25 years ago or something, but it's like you could see it and find it, but if you don't, you'll need to get hit by a bus and then sit in a hospital bed for a while. And this was the metaphor we were playing with. I remember the hit by the bus bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost as if there's an efficient elegancy or a rather rugged inelegancy. Inelegance.
I wonder if it's like, they talk about the onion thing, and I wonder if it becomes more, you're dealing with those big, gross as in size,
Yes.
Full experiences, feelings, thoughts about yourself. And once you shed those, the more fine and refined you get. Like, it doesn't go away. There's just stuff underneath all of it that takes a more refined, needs a more refined approach. And that can only be gotten by shedding those bigger, more rough, gross kind of layers. I wonder if that's a thing. That's kind of feels like what?
That's true to your experience.
I don't know.
Just throwing it out from curiosity.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It also makes sense that, I mean, the onion thing is usually used to understand no one knows, it's almost infinite in its way, like the innumerable layers, like layer on layer on layer on layer. So there's an invitation to soften into being a full-time processor, you know,
Yes.
of these things. You okay?
Yeah, just something in my eye.
Like someone asked the Buddha, how long will it take me to get enlightened? And it's like, perfect, got an answer for you, bud. Every 20,000 years, a dove's going to fly over that mountain over there with a scarf of silk in its claws, talons, and it's going to graze the top of the mountain every 20,000 years. The time it'll take to dissolve that mountain to dust is how long it'll take. So it would seem that that's an invitation to soften into not waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Like, I've always misunderstood that. So, like,
well, who knows?
that
many ways.
That is an invitation to stop seeking enlightenment and soften into yourself, rather than, dude, it's going to take you forever, so just get going.
Well,
because I've taken that as an invitation. I've taken that as like a
be more humble.
No. Just do the work and get going now, because this is how long it actually takes. Whereas I think what you're alluding to is like, well, if you're just waiting for enlightenment, whatever that means, if you're just waiting for enlightenment, this is how long it's going to take.
Really interesting. Yeah. So the way I experience that, and I think it lends itself to a more functional definition of enlightenment, is to show up for the process forever.
Yeah.
To show up and human. As if life is moving, like what it is to human is to stand here and be present while life enters you. While it moves from the front of your chest to the back of your chest and out the back of your solar plexus or something. And to meet it, to how fully you can meet it, and the more fully you can, the more it will transmute you, and the bigger you can grow, and the more of it you can hold. And essentially, the more joy and love you can experience for the next step and the next step. And even that sells it a bit short. And that, it's a big enough paradigm to include things like healing. I want to meet the bits that I haven't been able to meet yet from my past and let them bubble up. And so healing is a really welcome method to play with. To me, it's just a metaphor, just like enlightenment is. I mean, countless human beings who have been labelled enlightened, fully self-realised, as if there is a finite threshold that you cross and don't uncross, and that's that. And there's almost a suggestion that it's a singular threshold, that it's the one place that a handful of creatures, of human beings, have ever been able to get to. Maybe 100, maybe 1,000 or something, if we're lucky as a species.
Is it just that that threshold is, like the enlightenment threshold, is just the kind of marker for when the work stops here and starts in another place? For example, because you hear them saying like, you hear about gurus and stuff, how they just left their body. Like they didn't get sick, they didn't blah, 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 blah. They just said, all right, guys, I've kind of done my thing. You're on your own now. And they go into a room and then they purposefully just exit their body.
Do you mean as akin to death? Like,
yeah,
Mahasamadhi, one of the languages for it, but ways to language it.
So the idea being that what we're calling enlightenment, and because it's from a human perspective, you stop needing to reincarnate. But I don't know.
Yeah, getting off the karmic wheel.
Perhaps there's spaces.
They're all models.
But perhaps there's spaces after what we see as a human experience. There's then spiritual ascendance. You know what I mean? Like enlightenment is not actually the goal. It's just stop one when you're in hard, dense form.
So infinite enlightenment on a continuum?
I don't know. I mean, I imagine.
Isn't that implied? You might call it a different thing. Stage 2 enlightenment, like Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan 1.
No, well, I mean, it's probably just highlighting my limited understanding, because in my understanding, it's like enlightenment. That's when you know everything, and that's when you that's when you can be of service to everybody because you know all the answers and you have connection.
I don't think you're alone in that definition of it, but I would add you're also not alone in the vagaries about what that is. That vagary belongs to all the different traditions in the culture, as if it's similar to we're going to define what God is.
Yeah.
It gets impossible to define what that is. But the shadow aspect of that to me is that we have this exalted thing that we're unable to define, and that we may well be pushing it away from ourselves by virtue of that all the time. It's so exalted we couldn't possibly close the gap. To me, one of the forms of self-realization, of self-empowerment, of acquainting with yourself in a really powerful and deep and important and life purpose fulfilling way is to close that gap and be willing to see yourself as an exalted creature. And there is really important nuance in that. That's probably something you don't share with other people. It's certainly, by definition, not a thing that ever needs validation, which is the painful irony of people going to war over religion, is that if their God is God, it couldn't possibly
not be.
Need defending.
Yeah.
It's the one thing it couldn't possibly need. It's like a tragic anthropomorphization of God. These human beings that either, I don't know about claimed, it feels too harsh, but because I don't have a judgment about it, but adopt the role of the enlightened one in a spiritual community, we might say, or have that put upon them and allow that to happen. And again, there's not taking a moral position on any of this. They often describe, some of the spiritual giants of the modern game anyway, often describe a really important part of your self-realization path is recognizing you're already that. The veil between enlightened and unenlightened is incredibly thinner than paper.
Yeah.
So much so that there is no path to walk. You're already there. That's what the dissolving the mountain to dust with the silk scarf every 20,000 years says to me. It's the efforting to get there is incredibly counterproductive. And yet everything's this bloody paradox. So it can feel really good to force yourself into a run sometimes. It can feel really good to require yourself to meditate, 5 days a week instead of 2 days a fortnight. And on the other end of a stick, this is infuriating to listen to because it would be simpler if we just sat here and offered things as if they were true without looking at the duality of them and that everything, all methods have a shadowy underbelly.
That would make you like a false prophet then.
No, well, most teachers are offering things, the sound bites.
Their understanding of...
it's offering this is the way that it works. But if we're really honest, there's another part that goes, except when it doesn't.
Yeah,
and it works this other way.
Many ways of,
but then you might as well be, in some ways, you might be saying nothing at all. Because it's like, don't enter human relationships. They're incredibly dangerous. Incredibly horrible things can happen. If you don't enter human relationships, you're already dead.
Yeah.
Somehow both of those things are true. It's the other side of, it does behoove you to avail yourself of beautiful spiritual methods. It probably would help you to meditate every day.
Well, I think that speaks to that refinement process. Like things become more available to you when you're taking those outer onion layers off.
Right.
And perhaps part of the dissolving is meditation and is the quietening of the monkey mind. These are all of the kind of base layer things that are stopping you from really tapping into that infinite potential that's just beneath the surface, I think.
Yeah.
Again, it's like drawing that same analogy, which I've done before, but the telepathy tapes thing, where they quieten all the senses, like those big gross senses are perhaps hiding really refined senses that are magic to us right now, but perhaps in the future when we have more control over these kind of gross senses, then those other refined senses can come to the bubble to the surface.
It just sounds like anything when a worldly of a worldly variety.
Mm.
It draws you out into an array of different experiences, the full spectrum, which helps you collect data and sort and sift and clarify more and more who you are. And part of that might be that it can be a distraction from deep spiritual connection. But there's something about the distraction that enhances what that coming home is, as we're always talking about.
Well, because you're so far away, aren't you? I was so far away from it.
Yeah, right.
And now I'm right here. And the value in that distance traversed is...
Are you talking about you?
Yeah, well, I can
No,
only talk about myself, but I
wasn't sure.
It's just, like you're really making use of the duality, of that heavy polarity you're really experiencing.
Which is just, to me, fulfilling the promise of life, working with it so beautifully, riding the wave, being with it. And if we can buy into this idea that I'm my human self, the one I suppose sitting here talking to you right now is a very, very small part, the tip of the iceberg to my totality. And that spreads out into the rest of the universe. Inversely, like there's nowhere God isn't, so that includes me. And a lot of thread losing today.
That's right, there was an inner child in me going, yeah, me too.
So riding that, stepping right into life is stepping into the rest of myself, is saying the universe ain't broke. It's exactly as it is. There's nothing more self-aligning than validating the universe. Not that it needs your validation, of course, it'll keep doing its thing. But to step into full participation, I posit that, at least I'm not alone in this, I posit that anybody could find a deeper expression of participation in life, and you can feel as if the universe gets up out of its seat and celebrates and goes, yes, that's what we want. Whoever we is. The celebration. This is what I mean by it's not neutral to me. There's a benevolence in the universe that is available. We're not alone. We're adored. And it might seem like we're not doing a very good job some days, some weeks, some years. But the universe, God, intelligence, whichever label you're most comfortable with, sees all the steps that were taken that another human being couldn't possibly. Perhaps in some ways we can't even, because we're too busy doing it. It can see the forest for the trees and see exactly where we've come from, and therefore understand a lot of our choices. And so when we're willing to participate and step into that anyway, there's a thing from Conversations with God I'm reminded of, a Neil Donald Walsh book from the 90s, that's we're God's information. So we're out here collecting data for the one.
Do you really want to know, Neil? Couldn't resist.
So the play on words is we're God's information and we're God's information. So we're doing divine work for ourselves and for the whole. And we're collecting incredible data that expands what God is, expands the very frontier, and God's thrilled. It feels, in a way, to a part of me, obvious how loved we are. And the value of that is in being able to feel it. It's not a fairy tale that I'm telling myself to feel better. Maybe it is, and maybe it's a really good one. But like you were saying before, when I attune to happiness, why does it feel so amazing? Because there's self in it. When I attune to the benevolence of the universe, why does it feel so amazing? Because there's self in it. And it's the only truth that has any real power in this human experience, is to find what your soul is resonant with. And it's a thing you can feel in real time. We're very astray from this point, but we were talking about the efficacy of meditation. I was trying to build towards meditation's amazing, except when it's not. I know a lot of feminine identifying creatures that perhaps are more inclined to move into movement, a more feminine expression of connection with self. So I just want to be clear that there are many ways to get there. And you and I, Paul and I, would adopt many different forms. We can find deep connection with self through human connection, through connection with each other, connection with our children, the exhilaration of sport or movement, adrenaline, and even the sport thing would be breaking through a barrier, like winning, achieving, doing something. All these thresholds, opportunities for connection with self. And meditation is a wonderful one of those. And maybe the best, but that's subjective. Yeah. I think it's really important. It can feel a bit dogmatic when it feels like one thing is the way.
How would you define meditation?
Well, I think the institutional one, traditional one I think of is like a moment of deliberate single focus, a point of single focus, where you recognize that the world is inherently diversifying focus, like it's taking you to all these different foci, and then to remove out a stimulus and then to come into a singular focus. So usually it's mantra or it's breath. But I think we've probably talked about it before, but it's like, to me, it's removing distraction so that there's nothing left but your relationship with yourself, having direct contact with yourself. And it may be pertinent to include in that yes, there is a clearing of the mind. Perhaps the most direct way that I've experienced to do that, or the most frequent dynamic that plays out in my inner world when I sit, is actually a space holding for thoughts. So I'm creating a space for them to move through, which is often called witness consciousness. So you would sit in witness to the thoughts, and something miraculous happens in there that you recognize yourself as not the thinker, which is totally languaging, if I'm remembering right. That you're holding space for the flow of thinking to transpire. My lungs expand with oxygen, we call that breathing. My heart contracts and expands and pumps blood around my circulatory system, we call that beating of whatever. We call that our heart beating.
You had me, but
My lungs breathe, my heart beats blood, pumps blood, my brain controls in its way, and my mind, there's a discretion between the two, thinks. And if while we're working in a few dimensions, my ego attaches. They're all natural organs of the human experience. So when I observe my mind, I don't have the same trouble with thinking I am my heart, beating blood, the organic heart, the visceral heart. So watching the mind, something miraculous happens and you realize you're not it. And so the question begs, who the fuck are you?
I have a different understanding of mind, and I'd love to, get your thoughts on it. Like, my understanding of mind is it's a place where I put my thoughts. So it's like an empty space where my thoughts can exist, and that my mind doesn't think, I do. Does that work, or does that not?
It can. It's an inversion, but that's welcome. It's like all models can have a thread pulled apart, and you realize that there's modes in which it's not worth holding. There's moments in time where it's like all that matters is feeling. And if you feel, you'll find yourself, and that's where all your power is anyway, and you'll be able to propel yourself through anything in life, usually by surrender. But there's other moments in life where the frying pan is so hot, there is no time to feel or process. Get off the fucking freeway. We're not running on the freeway. Get off the freeway. There's a bit of a parenting layer to that, isn't there? But there are times where we don't have time to process. We don't have time to work out who's at fault or whatever.
Whatever way it works.
There's no space for this yin unpacking of how you feel right now. We're going to have to adrenalize and get out of danger's way. Otherwise we'll be dead, or, really inauthentic with the human experience, because we're denying our mortality. I was trying to explain that we want to adopt these methods, and a way of understanding mind would be an example of method, without enshrining
Attaching
them,
to
without
it.
setting them in stone, so that we're using it as a platform to better understand self and expand rather than making it gospel. So when you raise, a new way of holding, a different way of holding what mind is, I can work with that.
It doesn't matter.
I can work with that.
Yeah.
I'm more interested about what you're trying to get to here, not in terms of communication and dialogue, but as if we weren't in the podcast right now, to be like, oh, hey, what are you trying to access? In yourself.
For me, then, what that does, that way of conceptualizing mind, what that does for me then is allows me to be the thinker rather than my mind being the thinker and me just being the witness. And that may be, I feel like, again, I've just tied myself in a knot because I understand witness consciousness. I've been to that place very fleetingly a few times in my life. I don't have any sustained experience of it, but I have moments of.
I think it's pretty interchangeable with presence. Because who's being present to what?
Yeah.
I suspect you've been there a lot more often than.
I've certainly been in presence a lot more often, but the witness consciousness I'm talking about is when there's a detachment to it where there is no discernment of positive and negative. There just isness.
Yeah.
I feel like presence still has discernment in it. Maybe I'm incorrect.
No. I think it's a really interesting way to play with it. I mean, what if witness consciousness was allowed to include? I mean, we're describing a concept someone's come up with, a way of defining what this experience of being conscious is.
Yeah, it's like dancing about architecture.
Consciousness aware of itself.
Yeah.
Self-aware consciousness. Where are you? Aren't you there right now? Wouldn't you have to be be? And yet there's discernment, which goes, oh, okay, so it's not quite as pure. I want to dissolve into something more like nothingness, and yet still aware. That makes sense But what if there's a more dialed out perspective again, in which there's like, I'm going to hold space for discernment itself, stand in witness to discernment itself, and not belong to it as if it has power over me, but allow it to move through like a character in the movie that I'm entertaining, that I'm allowing to play through me. And I can turn it off at any point. Like I'm the one. It's my consciousness.
Yeah, interesting.
It's my consciousness. And yet there's a my in there. There's a me in there. That infers that there's a somebody there.
Somebody owns that consciousness, or somebody has that consciousness.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of spiritual arcs and momentums and intentionalities around getting rid of somebody. And that's totally okay. It's the ego dissolving. That has its efficacy. What I'm drawn to right in this moment is, what if we were able to hold space for all the phenomenon and sit in witness to that, and then also notice discretion. Notice that there are positions that I sit that are more comfortable than others. There are ways of dialoguing. It's really nice when I feel listened to. It's really nice when somebody responds to my listening with ever-deepening authenticity, and I can feel them opening, and I get the joy of that blossoming right in front of me. Not because I did it, but I stopped getting in the way of it.
And you're a witness to it.
And I'm somehow contributory to it. I'm contributing to it in a kind of like, I don't know, yielding, effortless way, and yet also in a present way, in an apparent way. I do exist in that way. So I think we're holding space for personhood in a way, which to me is holding space for the human experience, not just the sensory input, but the self, the Luke of it all, the human being, maybe the yin aspect from the sort of Shaivite tantric perspective. So, of course, you can witness that too, but not abandon it. Be present to it and allow it. You're going to desire food. You're going to desire human connection. you're going to desire certain inclinations of creativity. To me, that's like a seed was planted in the soil and it wants to impeccably and furiously, naturally grow and fulfill its purpose. A seed kind of, I mean, maybe a botanist would clarify this for me, but a seed does one thing. It trees, it plants, and then completes and then repeats the cycle. And so a human being's sort of no different. It just happens to include consciousness. So making all the space, in a way, the witness consciousness you're describing can be like death. I am removing so much personhood. There's not even any discernment. There's no advocacy. And it's beautiful, but it's only half the story. And while we're here, the personhood is the intention. The spirit came here to have this personhood. And you use the personhood to realize the spirit. And then what? And now there's all this other stuff to do. You either become like that traditional enlightened path where the personhood just disappears,
dissolves,
and you just embody the divine for others to drink in and discover that in themselves. And that's an exquisite model. I just wonder whether it seems like a primary momentum in my life to lean into. There's that and more. There's all the human creativity to lean back into it. What Khan calls a female enlightenment, where that's already there and you're leaning fully into the human experience over and over and over. You show up fully in your human relationships with your spouse and with your children and with your best bud and whatever. And you show up fully in your vocation, which is vibrationally chosen as extension of self. This is me manifest as a vocation. This is me manifest as a husband. This is me manifest as a father, to the greatest degree of vibrational resonance that I can hold.
What came to me before, just when you were talking about the presence and witness consciousness, was that I think the data, like to be present, I've experienced as still being a part of the data that is coming into my being. And that can be mind, it can be senses, it can be situational, environmental, but for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the witness consciousness is when all of that stops and there is no data coming in and you're just it for a second. And you get to experience just the witnessing with no information coming in. But that might be wrong. That might not wrong in the sense of wrong, but it might be it might be a different, or just a virtual part of witness consciousness.
Yeah. And what I'm inviting is to do that. Maybe it seems like it's a dialing back into gross form, into matter. But there's something about being able to hold it and coexist with it. And step into humanity that feels like a step forward to me rather than a step down. Or you might say it's a conscious step down.
I think in my understanding of it, I had to, and I don't have, but for me, it feels like I had to experience very fleetingly like what it felt like to just witness with nothing else, like to just witness everything, to be able to not isolate that, but to be able to embody what that feels like before I can then have other things come to me that then like, oh, you're an information field, you're my mind, you're my, like I can, now that I've experienced a split second without mind and a split second without inputs and just being in that consciousness state, I can now define quite strongly what I am and what are the things that come into me. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think it does on a feeling level. So you're saying when all the gross form falls away, you see your true nature beyond form, beyond role, beyond personhood. And then having known that and acquainted with it, and I think we would agree reacquainted with it, you can then relate in a clearer way to other things.
Mm.
Strange. I don't know about strangely, but that's I think that's what I'm trying to define. Have a consciousness awakening, and then step back into how full a human experience can you have, knowing what you actually are.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Like the idea.
That's fun.
The idea that, like, you can look at another person and go, I can see myself looking out through you. Like, this is a very subtle recognition. This sounds so wanky. I don't feel like we should include this.
Everything sounds wanky unless it's authenticated, and the way we authenticate is we're feeling it in real time. So it feels as it exists as truth in feeling form in your body.
It does. There's some real part of like some real part of like
that's self-validating or not.
Well, it's because it's like what I'm attempting to do and perhaps failing is to go, I see you in there looking out and I understand. Like I there is a somewhat tenuous and certainly something that I'm not constantly connected or is not constantly available to me, but for brief seconds and brief moments and stuff, I can see you in there. You know, like.
Well, funnily enough, that phenomenon is experienced by enough people. There's a word for it in Hinduism. Is namaste. That's what that means.
The God in you. The God in me recognizes the God in you.
Yeah, so underneath all our layers, we're the same bloody person. And I see that and I honour that part in you. And again, that's just another bit of poetry. Until you can step into a part of you that is that. And how do you experience that? Well, you be it and feeling. You feel yourself being it.
It's so interesting, like, I'm immediately drawn to kind of out myself and go into a moment where that's not that. You know, like to just kind of like roll into, it's so nice to have these little moments of interconnection and these little moments of feeling the pull towards that beautiful unity. But then also like there's the very natural part of me that's like, don't forget about that thing that happened yesterday where you got really upset or angry about. You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
That's the push-pull, isn't it?
Do you think that that's a part, the way you're talking about it, it's a part that is dizzied by the expansion and wants to move back to something safer and denser and lower?
No. It feels like a part of me that's like, hey, don't get too carried away with all of that. There's still value in
who do you think you are?
No. As in,
you mean
there's
let's
value.
Not get too expanded because we came here to human too.
Yeah, I don't know what it is actually. Like, maybe it is a self-judgment thing.
It feels like a quick pursuit of safety.
Yeah, but there's no judgment attached to it. Like, there's no negative energy attached to it. It's more like that thing of, don't forget these things still happen, you know? I don't know. Maybe it is me trying to put a disclaimer in or something, but...
Well, we know there's beauty.
I would say it regardless of whether we were recording or not in the conversation. Like, so it doesn't feel like I'm having to justify in case I sound like a wanker, you know?
Yeah.
It's more that thing of there is merit and value in both of these experiences. To what degree do you integrate and how do you integrate these spiritual concepts and the way that you live your life and think about your life as a conscious being into your parenting?
Oh, okay. So that whole thing was centered around, the way you read that question, that's all centered around parenting?
Mm-hmm. It's obviously you as a feeling, sensitive, expanding soul. So what I guess they're fascinated about is how that works in the context of being a father and how that informs the way that you interact with your kids, I guess.
Yeah.
When to use it, when to not.
Oh, it's constant though. It's all the time. I don't know which moment wouldn't imply it. I've had like amazing, deep heart connected moments watching my children eat my food. I feel like if you're really present to it. I've mentioned on the pod before, but spearfishing's one of my hobbies, and you know, plan for days to hit the ocean in the right conditions and hunt fish and learn all about it. It took me, I don't know, and 20 dives before I actually speared anything, and so it was a very humbling craft. And but when I, you know, take fish home, gut, scale, go through the whole process, and then fillet and cook and whichever we were doing, and then I'd watch my children eat it. Man, very human, very primal. Like maybe the hunter
Maybe
went
the
out
most.
and fulfilled his purpose, and then completed the fulfillment of that by watching his children chew the food. It was certainly more important in that moment, not from a moral point of view, but energetically there was more juice in watching my son, who was probably 2 at the time, chew the fish than it was me tasting the fish. Think about those things. To me, that's a fascinating intersection between what it is to simply human in the most basic, instinctive, primitive of ways, and yet it feels so spiritually fulfilling to sit there and feel really alive and a lot of love and a lot of alignment. It's not different to sitting in the depths of meditation and feeling like I feel so connected to myself. I feel no notes universe. I feel no complaints. I feel no resistance. I feel whole. And it feels like joy, and it feels like love, and it feels like coming home. And it feels like, almost you might say, if you were to really peer right into it, it feels like death. I feel complete. And a bit like what you were saying before, it's just for a flicker. And that's totally okay. And I want to feel like that for forever. Yeah, so that one comes to mind. At the pointier end, how do I integrate these big lofty spiritual concepts into the rubber hitting the road of relating to my children? We've talked about it before, but I've noticed that my capacity to space hold has gone up, and so my trigger ability has gone down. Neither is extinguished. There will be more containment in the future, and there will be more triggers, but there will also be, in the way, less triggers. I'm saying growth will continue. Job ain't done. And I do notice that there's more calm in my nervous system to give to them. And again, that feels like a lofty spiritual thing of meeting myself in such deep ways. And it manifests directly as simple, quiet space to just see that my kids are fighting and they're at each other. But I can see exactly where she's coming from and exactly where he's coming from, based on their ages and their dispositions and the day they're having and the week they're having and how much time we've spent together to process any backlog or the realities they're moving through, busy weeks at school, sports, away with friends, sleepovers, all the variables. To see them as they are, and yet have the poise to then still manage a household or something. Yeah. And it's worth adding that when those moments fall over and go bad, last night I noticed myself get short and chippy and default to discipline and like, I need you to consider each other more and to consider me, and okay, well we've done this for a while now, I've had enough and it's time to go home, and just notice my own prickliness come up. And something else that popped into my mind with the question was, I'm very conversational in my processing. I like to use language to access feeling. If I read my astrology, it's like obvious that I do. and we're all different. Funnily enough, my daughter, who's almost teenager kind of thing, we were on a long drive together and we used AI to help us work out our star signs in the zodiac and how they relate to each other and how they process emotionally. We didn't really mean to, we're just having some fun driving along, but it was, talking to us, and it's like having a third person encyclopedia in the car that could explain these things and how they interact. And we even did one for her and her brother, and it was amazing to pull apart, because of course it's just collating data from across all these different Vedic zodiac astrology resources. And the reason it's worth mentioning, I think, is that I'm much more conversational in my emotional expression. And so I'm regularly inviting her into dialogue about how she feels. And her form of emotional expression is much more creative. So through arts and through music, and that she can access her heart through those things and then maybe have a little to say about it. But so how do we meet in the middle? And so we had a conversation about, I can see how this must be quite confronting for me to invite you into this regularity. And if you happen to be soft and gooey or just so ripe and overwhelmed that it must come up and out anyway, then it can be useful. But in the margins, it might be a bit of a nuisance. And certainly the way she screws up her face is that I'm a nuisance to her. So EQ is not enough. Being spiritually or emotionally inclined is not enough. There's more work to do. Doing yoga every day and meditating, bookending your day with yoga and meditation, or meditation and yoga, one of those ways round, is not enough. You've also got to relate to human beings with as much consciousness as you can. There's always more. And it's humbling. And that's really fun. Working with that humility will empower you in a way that will in some ways dissolve humility, but then invite you to more. By working with the humble bits, we expand ourselves. By being humbled by an endeavor, we get to traverse the endeavor, be real about where we are in relationship to it, and therefore traverse it next. And that it expands us into something much bigger, which there's room for humility in the face of new stuff, but that's perhaps more integrated. We do get bigger. What I'm saying is humility is wonderful, but to recognize how far we've come and celebrate it and feel our own bigness, and beautifully, we're not talking about the kind of bigness that needs the validation of other. Something I find myself as a human being, I suppose it's a vulnerable thing to say, but I find myself craving, and some part of it is human, that I do want it for myself, but also, and I think in a more important way, it's the compass, it's the center point, it's the balance, it's the safety, it's the home of my relationship with my children, and their sort of like the sponsoring dynamic of our family is, are we connected to one another? And that's not a intellectual thing. It's a felt thing. Do we feel connected? And yeah, it usually takes the form of, have we had enough quality time? But quality informs a doing thing, a being thing when you're together. Are we intimate? Are we vulnerable? Have we made it safe enough for your feelings to bubble up and for you to go, rah, oh God, I feel so much better now. God, I'm glad I got a place to be able to be that messy. Yeah, so in the undulations of family life, how connected do we feel? And on a very personal note, I'm not sure how puberty, etc., is going to affect that. It's a beautiful thing that that stuck with me from an Abraham Hicks share. It would have just been a random Q&A with a person on a retreat, but I suppose it's been mentioned a few times. But it's like the thing we regard culturally, let's say in the West, I can't speak for other cultures on this front, is with teenagers. Well, I think we've talked about this before, PR, but this cliched and perhaps even obligatory resentment of their parents, pushing away. It does make sense in a de-nesting kind of way. I'm getting ready to be more autonomous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sovereignty, liberty. But the offering to this, all the Abraham Hicks stuff, it's channeled, so it's like it's offered to a very specific person in that moment. It is like a vibrational lock and key equivalent to that person in that moment being met with this answer. So it needn't apply to all, but it may have value elsewhere. And anyway, in this instance, it's teenagers get shitty with their parents because they don't want to be them. So you say all these things that I should abide by in order to lead a full life, but your life is not full. I feel it in your system that do this in order to be a proper grown-up. Do this to be a worthy human being. Do these things, and yet when I scan your system, you are not happy, and that is not my definition of a worthy life lived, of a life well lived. Something quite jarring about that. In general, be very careful who you take advice on. If someone's giving you relationship advice and they do not embody divine union in their own life, even if they might not necessarily have to be in relationship, but if you can feel someone's really out of relationship with the romance that is part of their nature because they're so defeated by relationship, as an example, then move quickly and decisively away from that advice. Change the subject.
Don't take financial advice from a pauper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what forms of, so example, somebody who is so hurt by the opposite sex from all the things that have happened that that's all they can talk about, there will be some accuracy, but it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's also connected to their journey, right? To their journey, not
yeah.
anybody else's.
Well, similarly, the journey of the receptacle in that instance, the person listening, the one we're appealing to, the one I'm appealing to, it's part of their journey.
Yeah.
To see it and go, ugh, I respect the sovereignty of this person's journey in the chapter that they're in, but I don't want to mix relationship energies.
Yeah.
I don't want to open the room of my heart that's around relationship to that foray. We can talk about sports instead or something. Yeah. So yeah, similarly with the teenagers, like, how do they feel? Really, whenever I speak to other parents and there's some questions around things or whatever, we end up dissolving into something about self-work. How much authenticity, intimacy and love can you cultivate between you and you? And in a ruthlessly practical and, in this instance, psychological way, our generation is spending their 30s and 40s in therapy. For better or worse, it's an observable phenomenon. And most of that, Freudian or otherwise, we're processing the things that our parents weren't able to hold up to the light in their own lives were absorbed osmotically by the children. And so the children are transmuting them through their experiences as a child, held by their own adulthood, amplified by a therapist. So it stands to reason the best thing we can do for our kids is take care of our own shit as best we can. And as you and I know well and have shared on the pod, and we will miss some stuff. But we'll do our very best. And it functions as, a mess cleaner-upper, but indirectly a radical amplifier for what's possible for our then adult children. And all that means is their capacity to be themselves without stuff in the way, coming right back, a revelatory process. The stuff that is in the way will be lessened, and so more of them gets to bubble up. More of them is revealed and can then artfully manifest onto the canvas of their life. The masterpiece of their life is themselves writ large.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I really went with you on that journey then.
Yeah?
Yeah. Knowing your daughter and your son and...
Well, I wanted to say into the microphone then I love them so much. Now I'm talking about a thing instead of saying the thing. Obviously I do. But I can't. Declaring it, I love them so much. But like I am love for them. And so you could say like they're a catalyst for me to experience that part of myself, which is true. But that's just half the story to me. The other half is the very human. I love them so much. That's not my divinity. My divinity loves everything. That's my humanity, which informs my divinity so much that it is in and of itself divine. So they bleed into each other.